Hello and welcome to the BMC Quick Course Series. My name is Andy Andrews and I'm a software consultant for the Mainframe batch products at BMC. Applications may use checkpoint frequencies that were valid when the application was written but may be inefficient now. Application Restart Control, or ARC, enabled pacing is a feature that controls checkpoint frequency outside of the application code. In other words, you determine the best balance between performance, restart time, and checkpoint overhead without changing your application code. In this section, I'll describe how to use checkpoint pacing. Checkpoint pacing is available for all variations of ARC. Checkpoint processing is an absolute requirement for batch processing in a multi-user or shared environment, but it can be very expensive. From the application program's point of view, checkpoints are 100% overhead, both in terms of resources consumed and elapsed time. In a perfect world, a program would issue checkpoints just often enough to satisfy restart and database locking requirements. However, checkpoint intervals are generally not regulated and no one thinks about them once an application is in production. Many batch programs are more than 20 years old and they were written to run on hardware and software that was very much slower than the versions we run now. So a program that took checkpoints every 2 seconds several years ago could easily be taking multiple checkpoints per second. Excessive checkpoint activity can significantly increase elapsed time and CPU consumption. ARC can help by filtering excessive checkpoint activity, and you don't need to change the application programs to implement it. The filter sits between the application program and the underlying DBMS. The filter intercepts all checkpoints and processes some of them at user-specified intervals. The filter returns the remaining checkpoints to the application as though they processed, so the application will continue to execute normally. The result is a significant reduction in overhead for both the application program and the DBMS. Checkpoint pacing is usually administered at the system level. Let's see how to set it up. Setting up checkpoint pacing is a two-step process. First, we will set the pacing parameters, then we will enable pacing. The checkpoint pacing options reside in a pacing class. Choose option 3, Checkpoint Pacing Options, to view the options. ARC supports multiple pacing classes, although only one class will be in effect for any single program execution. Here we have 4 pacing classes. Pace class, P-A-C-E-C-L-A-S, is the default class name and is pre-populated when you install the product. I have added 3 classes for a 1, 3, and 5 second interval. Let's see what's inside the 3-second class. Here is pacing class PC03SEC. You can specify different values for different times of the day. For example, you can set different checkpoint intervals for shift 1, the prime shift, and for shift 2, overnight batch processing. The pacing interval between checkpoints value represents the minimum amount of time before the next checkpoint will be allowed to process. The threshold interval without a checkpoint specifies what action to take if a program doesn't take a checkpoint within the allotted time, for example a runaway program or one that's in a loop. In this example, the action is set to warn, so ARC will issue a message to identify a program that is not taking checkpoints often enough. For simplicity, leave the value of the condition set to the default of any while you're getting familiar with setting the pacing options. Now let's set the threshold values. Press F8 to page forward to the next screen. I have set the pacing interval between checkpoints to 3 seconds and the threshold interval without a checkpoint to 2 minutes. Once a checkpoint has been issued, a timer will prevent additional checkpoints from processing until 3 seconds have passed. If a program does not take checkpoints for more than 2 minutes, for instance a runaway program or one that's in a loop, ARC will issue a write to operator message because the action specified on the previous screen was warn. This is a time-based pacing class and would be a good starting point for a production environment. Now that we've defined our pacing parameters, let's save them and activate pacing. Navigate to the ARC primary panel and select option 5, Processing Options. In this example, we have 2 sets of options. The first is specific to program FEC0001. The second option set, identified by all asterisks, is the system default option and applies to any job running under control of ARC. Select the System Default option by placing an S beside the line of asterisks as shown. Page down to the Automation Options Part 2 screen to enable pacing for all programs that run under control of ARC. Enable checkpoint pacing by setting the value pace checkpoints to Y. Enter the name of the pacing class that you wish to use. In this case, I have specified the 3-second pacing class PC03SEC. Type Save on the command line or press F3 to save and exit. Checkpoint pacing is now enabled. Thank you for your time. For more information on any BMC mainframe product, please visit the URL shown here.